Morning, Henry.
Good morning.
Hi, Michael.
Hello. So yeah, did anyone chase Henner up? We might be able to just catch him last minute, although it's 8 a.m. for him. So
No, we just got on. Or I just
okay. Because when I wrote the email that you can take care of inviting Henner to the next TSC meeting, I of course didn't assume it was happening like in 2 days, but still, I did assume that someone would take that responsibility, preferably someone that's not me. So Brian, if you could add Henry permanently to the group and the invite, and I'm trying to catch Henner, but like he's probably asleep because it's 8 a.m. for him. So if he didn't,
Henry's on the call. Brian is not here yet.
Henner, not Henry. Sorry.
Oh, Henner, I'm sorry. I
I
apologize.
might have said Henry because kind of my brain.
No, you were fine. I think it might be my hearing actually, so it's okay.
Yeah. No, I know Henry's on. I didn't know that Brian wasn't on. Somehow I missed that. Okay. Anyway, like I think we can just we have quorum, right? We have 2 out of 3 members. So we can probably do the meeting. Okay, Brian just joined. Perfect.
Hi, Brian.
Hello. My headset appears to be messed up. Let's see if I can find a different one. Oh, I'll just close my door and go with that one. Okay, you able to hear me?
Yes.
All right, cool. Jumping from one emergency to the next today.
Story of my life.
Oh, jeez. All right, so I invited Henner just now and added him to the mailing list. So for the TSC meetings, I think everybody who's on the invite should be able to manage the invite, I think. Let me just double check that though.
It's not that I wasn't able to manage the invite. I just was, when I was writing the email, I was on the phone and I just wrote in the email that one of you should invite Henner. So I assumed someone would do that, especially that I can't add him to the group as well. And that that's another action that needed to be done. So I just assumed it would be either you, Brian, or perhaps Henry, but
let's see. I think we ought to fix that so that you're able to add to the group. Yeah, Michael, let me make you a mod on the group here. And Rob should also be a mod as well.
I assume it's a groups.io group, so we can manage.
Yeah, it is. That's correct. I'm going to set you up to add, view, and remove members. You can also ban members. I'm not going to set you up to approve pending messages because you get spammed with a ton of messages that way. Michael, do you know how to moderate people and add them and remove them on groups.io? Do you how to do that for any other projects?
I did do that, yeah, before, so I'll manage. I just need the permissions.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good. Let me give you both permissions at the top level. Okay.
Okay, should we start? Because I think it's things are getting some momentum, and I don't think we have time to lose. We can let you click through things, Brian, while we talk.
Sounds good.
All right, I hereby call the May 26th meeting of the Technical Steering Committee to order.
Sounds good. So let's maybe go through and review kind of what's been going on, the various votes that have been taken here. So Henry or Michael, do you want to go through the most recent vote?
Yeah, if I may first ask, do we have meeting notes in some kind of a Google Doc that we could kind of collaboratively edit? I think that would be a good thing.
Good
As a
point.
number of things to track grows, I think I'm just following the example of the Zephyr TSC I'm also participating in, where they have some robust meeting notes, and it's really helpful, even if someone doesn't take part, like Henner today. Because he wasn't invited in time, he can still read what was going on. And also, like, by giving access to multiple people that can edit the notes, like we can, it's not all hanging on you, Brian, or whoever is writing it down, but it can be anyone. And especially if people have multiple action items, like some coming from some members and some coming from other members, then those members can also kind of paste relevant links and type any conclusions.
Absolutely. Just 1 second and I'll share these out.
Usually the way I've seen other groups structure it is like only a few people have like edit rights, and any other people have comment rights, so that like they can suggest edits into the Google Doc, but they need approval to merge them with the notes themselves, to avoid anyone accidentally editing the notes and changing history without approval.
Yeah, that seems pretty reasonable. One of the other things that's worked well in other projects is once the meeting notes settle a bit, when everybody's reasonably comfortable, then just convert them to Markdown and commit them to the repo. So we can definitely do that as well.
I'm a big fan of Markdown myself, so I'm not going to protest. But like in terms of like live editing, it's it's my lifelong dream to have a good live multi-person editor of Markdown. But if anyone knows of this, please tell me. Else I might have to implement one myself.
Okay, I just dropped a link into the chat here. And everybody who's current TSC members will have access. Will have write access to the folder. The links that are in the meeting minutes folder. Anybody with the link who can access it will be able to add comments. So that's open to the world at large.
Okay, sounds fine. I think that's how it typically works in Linux Foundation's projects, right? Because the TSC meetings are public after all.
That's correct. That's correct.
Sounds right.
And I would advise that it's a rolling doc, so it's like TSC meeting notes 2021, for example. And we just have one document. We don't need to kind of circle back and try to find the document again next time around, but more like it's a one link that we return to.
Continuous stream.
Sorry?
A continuous stream of notes.
Yes, exactly.
In one
And then we
file.
do like May the 26th, right? And sorry, I always use ISO date formats because I'm European.
It is the only good format.
That's okay.
Yeah, Michael, I'm gonna drop in a
Yeah.
bunch of stuff here for you. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, please do. No, please do. I wasn't. Oh, perfect.
This is coming directly out of the
Okay, doke.
Okay, and then next thing I'll do here is for the recording, I'll share this screen so that it's, let's see exactly what's happening. There you go.
I assume our quorum is 50%, right? Plus one.
That's correct. Yep.
So 2 out of 3 is still quorum reached.
That's right.
Okay, just checking.
And just for the future, that's good for both regular votes and supermajority votes. So editing charters and things like that, 2/3 is what is the minimum bar. Okay. Well, who would like to lead the agenda? That agenda actually looks pretty accurate for today. Maybe starting with the email votes. There's one big one, which we just started talking about at the beginning.
Yes, so we basically had one vote. We started another one, by the way. I mean, I did. So should we put that on the agenda or in the minutes?
You know what? How about we do? Let's do it like that. We'll just edit them in line.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so vote number 1 was variable, and we got 2 out of 2 votes that were positive. So that means the vote passed, I guess.
That's correct.
And with that, Henner Zeller became our 3rd TSC member. And then we have another application for graduated. I don't think we have applications for Sandbox right now. Oh, we do. Sorry, I think we actually do.
Yeah, there's one.
There's the Espresso application, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to get Henry's opinion on this one because it's like it seems to be in the Chisel ecosystem, and that of course means that you might be a bit more knowledgeable than myself.
I can provide a little background, but I think it will take some general discussion as to whether or not we should approve it.
Oh, now I can see that it's BSD licensed. So
yes, the licensing situation is a mess, basically. So we should
Okay.
talk about what the path forward is.
Is it just BSD license, or are there additional constraints on it?
It looks to me like the BSD license only covers part of it. And it's the old BSD license, not the newer one. And yeah, I think that's about it. And the person who wants to bring it into the CHIPS Alliance and maintain it is not the original author.
I see.
Basically, it's like an abandoned project that UC Berkeley has continued to host.
Okay.
And so Chisel uses it. The Swerve cores from Western Digital also use it. So it's not purely a Chisel ecosystem thing. So yeah, it's just not really clear to me under what conditions it is acceptable to, create a fork of this project and relicense it. And so I think getting some advice or direction about that in discussion would be good. But
Yeah.
Okay, that's good background. Michael, in terms of the list that I put together for legal, where would you want to have this in the pipeline?
I believe that there's nothing urgent specifically about this. I mean, of course, it would be nice to have it if it's part of existing CHIPS Alliance projects, but I think, like, realistically, we should I think projects that are nominally in CHIPS Alliance, but we haven't yet graduated them, that takes precedence. And then as for non-Apache projects, I think the ones that take precedence are ones that are being contributed by their original authors.
Okay.
Because this is like a less complicated situation where someone created a project and wants it to have a new home in CHIPS Alliance, versus this, which is there is a project, but we don't know the attitude of the original author towards it going into CHIPS Alliance, right? So there needs to be some due diligence and research around this.
yeah,
Okay.
I'd say the evidence of attitude is there's a posting on the original website that says this project is not maintained and no questions about it will be answered.
I see. In other words, don't call us, we'll call you.
Thing.
Sorry.
It's not the worst thing, of course. The worst would be this project is not maintained and, like, please do not use it, and we're never gonna donate it anywhere or something.
Yes.
But it's more a statement of we have no time to do anything with it, which is fine, and that's what open source is about. There's other people who can take over and continue the work, which happened. So in general, I assume we'll be able to resolve this positively, but it'll probably take time to get enough confidence in this project to onboard it.
Yeah, I agree.
But we should keep track of, like, the long tail list of projects to onboard. Like, we're kind of talking about that with Tim Ansel a little bit as well, right? But of course, he'll typically mention the project that he cares about.
Sure.
And there's certainly more projects than that. So we should have some kind of a list.
Yeah. No, but I definitely agree, since it's part of Chisel and also used by the Swerve core, we should definitely keep track of it and figure out how to fold it in.
In a sense, you have this presentation, Rob, so you can just add it at the very end, right? Like,
okay, yeah.
Don't push it on top, but keep track of it by having it in the slide deck, and we can use the slide deck as the single source of truth for this particular problem, right? Because for projects that are already Apache licensed and have no problems associated with them, I think we should just go and admit them. I mean, we can keep a list, but realistically, we should just open PRs for each and every one of them. That's all, instead of keeping a list. But for projects that need some work, we just have to keep track and gradually go through them. Okay, So
Makes
I think
sense.
this Sandbox application is kind of frozen. I gave the TSC meeting tag to it. I'm not sure if we should have another tag that signifies license, like non-Apache. I would propose that we have a license like this so that we can see that this is not just something to be discussed and voted through. This is something to be, resolved,
Investigated.
investigated. Yeah. We could have it more general, like investigation needed, but perhaps Brian can kind of guide us in the language we should use.
I mean, I would say whatever makes sense to you. There's not really any particular single practice on this.
Let me then create some kind of a label, and
Yeah.
worst case, we rename the label.
I mean, main thing is just choosing something that makes sense.
Let me do needs investigation. That's going to be.
Yeah.
And it's pink. So I'll mark this appropriately, and then we'll know that it's not a trivial case. And if the person starts asking questions, we'll kind of just explain that it's unfortunately on our list of things to get through. And we should kind of slowly start opening PRs for, any other things which are fairly, we're fairly certain of that they do want to join. And we should put them in the Sandbox group where I assume this is exactly where we want them to be.
Yeah,
Right, Brian? Like we can, for example, Gen 5. Let's take Gen 5. It's a project that wants to move to chips and it has the wrong license, and we want to get through this process of admitting it, but we first need to do due diligence. So the correct process, I assume, would be to admit them to Sandbox because they've expressed the will to join, and that kind of puts them one leg in Chips Alliance already. And we can kind of simultaneously, and also we can just keep track of it more publicly and more openly. I wouldn't do that for projects that we want to admit, but the projects themselves are hesitant. But if the projects are happy to do that, we just need to resolve some issues, then Sandbox probably is the place.
That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, Michael, and that perfectly encapsulates the goal of the Sandbox stage. Really the goal of the Sandbox stage is a place for projects to indicate, hey, we're interested in becoming graduated projects of the CHIPS Alliance, but we still have some things to get in order. This puts it on our radar. It allows us to understand that there are projects which maybe need some additional time and attention. And it also gives us just kind of a clear way of managing what is still outstanding between now and a graduated application. So yes, absolutely.
So Gen 5 is one. Do we have other ones? That SB tests is another one. We should. I'm sure this one will go through. It's just going to take time. Rob, you had a few more on your list. So I suggest like. Sorry.
No. We had FASOC from Michigan.
FASOC is an interesting one because actually Open FASOC or FASOC, whatever you called it.
I have to say, yeah, I'm sorry.
The Open FASOC is actually Apache licensed, to be perfectly honest.
Right. Yeah. Sorry.
So I'm not sure if we shouldn't just admit Open FASOC and over time, and perhaps Sandbox FASOC, the broader framework, or even like admit Open FASOC as a graduated project and then just like over time merge FASOC, the entirety of FASOC into like just like Chisel and Fertile are one project.
I like that idea.
Code bases.
I like that idea. I think that's a good suggestion. Then there was Magical from UT Austin.
Okay,
that's
so
a BSD. That's a BSD license.
I think there's also the Align framework, which unfortunately I dropped the ball on, which we have to fix.
You're right.
The Align framework from Intel. Let me look at what's the license there. BSD3 class, so not the worst.
That's from Intel, you said?
Yes, among other people.
That's okay. Yeah, no, I had forgotten that one too, although I recall the name.
Magical is who? Austin, ETA?
UT Austin, yeah.
The test is and Micro and Google. Gem 5 is, who was that? Washington?
That's originally from University of Michigan. Its current host is, well, I don't know if that's really true. I was gonna say UC Davis, but they actually have that's just Professor Low Power is at Davis.
So UCD is the other one. Okay.
Yep.
And what's the license there?
Where?
And Magical has expressed the will to join, correct? They have said
That is
so. Or
that is true. That is true.
just checking so that we don't accidentally push someone to Sandbox who doesn't really want to be there.
Yeah, no. Just let me find that slide presentation that I added Espresso to. You said Gem 5. That's BSD3.
Okay.
They actually have their own organization, Gem5.org. I'm not sure how that qualifies as an, how that qualifies or compares to a university, but that's what I have listed as your institution.
And then Magical, just to complete this list, is BSD3 class as well. It's a very popular license, you can see. Rightio. So yeah, I would propose creating those sandbox applications, and for projects that we need to admit to graduated, there's a few. But let's first get into this section. I assume we can go to point 4, review application for graduated. So yes, there's a Sherlock UHDM application. I have a question, Brian. We have to wait for everyone to answer the vote, or do we have to wait for a majority? Majority, yep. And then, okay, the vote goes through. Because of course, I know that Henry will vote for it, but then again, I can ask Henry, unless Henry, of course, doesn't want those products on.
No, I have no objection. I see the email.
Yeah,
I can respond to the email and say approve right now.
That would be great, yeah, because that means we could already on this meeting we could approve, like, mention that this vote has passed. And
I am sending an email that says approve.
And just for the benefit of the recording here, one of the reasons we do email votes for things like this is so that we have a written record of the votes. So thank you, Henry, for doing that.
No problem.
And then also for the benefit of the recording, Michael identified, since each new project adds a new voting member on the TSC, if we have multiple votes that are batched up, we basically have to do them in order, and each time adding a new person to the vote, which changes the quorum requirement. But over time, presumably the number of projects which we're taking in at the same time will slow down. So just a procedural thing. It's sequential votes versus voting on all the projects all at once.
Yep.
And that vote just came in. So Sherlock and UHDM are in.
Okay.
Updating the minutes live.
Do I have to kind of summarize the vote over email, or is it enough if we do it on the meeting, or do I have to follow?
Yeah, doing it in the meeting and recording it in the meeting minutes is more than enough.
Okay, so let me just merge the pull request then, and next meeting we can invite Alain. And I really have to learn how to pronounce his name. One of the things that we noticed during Elaine's presentation, application was that he originally copied, pasted the release schedule, of the one I gave him as an example, and that was releases are created with every commit, right? But I looked at those projects, and of course, it doesn't. It was just a copy paste error. But like, it turned out okay. There is no release policy, right? Like, it's just code being developed on GitHub. There are no formal releases. So I proposed some wording that says basically there is no set policy right now, and the policy will be developed together with Chips Alliance, right? Like, I think that's one of the points of a project joining our organization, is for us to help find the right way to release the project, to the right cadence, the right circumstances, perhaps automating such processes and so on. So I don't see it as a problem. That's why I kind of I allowed the application in, but like, of course, I don't think it's a bad idea that we have the question in the form, because of course that signifies it's something we want to work towards, actually having a release methodology and having some mechanics in place. Just wanted to open it up for discussion if everyone thinks the same. And how strict should we be in enforcing actually having such a policy? I can hear nobody has strong opinions.
I think it's okay.
Or I got disconnected.
No, you're there.
Okay, just raising it, like, because it was one of the points that there was a problem with in the application, right? Like, I'm helping people fill in those applications, and then I see which questions actually pose the biggest problems for people. And I think it's kind of procedural ones. Like if you only have to confirm that you want to do something, it's like people do confirmed. But like questions like this, is there a release methodology? Sometimes the answer is no. And I don't see it as an explicit problem per se. I see it as something to be fixed in the long term, and Chips Alliance being the exact place that can help with this. Because the broader background for admitting UHDM and Surelog is to make them used more widely among all the other Chips Alliance projects, such as Swerve, for example, or other System Verilog based projects. We're already doing this a little bit, trying to enable UVM support in open source tools. So that potentially also kind of creates a path towards adoption in RISC-V DV. So like interconnections between the projects are something we want to encourage, and that will naturally breed a stronger need for having a release mechanism. Because of course, with adoption, there comes problems like this commit is incompatible with that commit. How do we make sure that regressions don't happen and things like this? And formal releases are a part of the process to enable this kind of stability that's needed when a project is being used more widely.
That makes sense.
Awesome. Okay, so now we have 2 projects. Of course, that's a subset of what we should have. So I wanted to start going through applications that we need to create. OpenFASoc is one, but there is also Swerve. And the question is whether that should be one or multiple projects. Intuitively, I think it's one, but that's something we have to reach out to Srini about at Western Digital. At least that's what Zvonimir told me. So I'll take
right.
that action point to reach to Srini at Digital. But there's also Risk5DV, right? There's also a bunch of other things that we already have. There's AIB. I think AIB is actually in Sandbox.
It is. It is. I saw it. Risk5DV, is that a Google project, or who owns that one, or originated it? Okay.
Google. Yeah. Google.
And
of course, with all those.
Sorry, go ahead. No, I was just
with
saying
all those
AI
admissions. Sorry, with all the admissions, we'll of course be getting new members and having to onboard them and so on. So I mean, it's a good problem to have, but just mentioning. Oh, by the way, I have a few questions regarding specifically the TSC repo. I think it's a good place to talk about this. So, okay, but let's perhaps finish this list because I am sure that we're not far away. There's OmniExtend that we also need to graduate, and there's Rocket Chip, right?
Yeah, Rocket Chip and Chisel are still both sandboxed.
Yeah, so these are 7 applications, at least, I think. And once we have those on board, we can of course talk about more. I think it's already quite a few.
That's a good list.
And that will of course generate like a number of new TSC members. So the dynamics will change quite a lot, right? We already have 4, which is 100% increase over the original 2. Once we get like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more, it's going to be way more people to delegate work to. I mean, not as in delegate everything to one poor soul, but more like different people can take different tasks. Between 11 folks, I think it's going to be fairly simple to have some progress, even if a few of them are busy sometimes and so on.
Well,
So
it helps build momentum. That's the good thing.
So Rocket Chip is Sci5 or Berkeley, actually. More.
Both. Yeah.
Both. Yeah. And you'll have to choose who's the, who's the representative for. And I want Jack.
Yes, Jack will definitely be the Chisel representative.
That's good to hear. He's a cool guy. Okie doke. So
yeah,
I think that's quite a list. And I wanted to go over specifically to this point number 5, the discussion of the TSC repo structure, because that I think is pretty important. If we look at the TSC repo, there's a lot of redundancy, and I'd like to get rid of it, because if we need to be so formal about any changes to that repository, this redundancy will just kill us. I mean, because you add something here, but you forget to add it here, and then you need to do another pull request to add it, or basically the alternative is that the repo is not coherent, which is also bad. So I would strongly advise for us to actually simplify the structure a little bit. And I don't know if I can present it here, but perhaps I should do that. Just let me join from my computer.
Stop the share.
Unless Brian, you could share the screen, the repo on the screen, and then I could tell you where to look.
Sure, give me 1 second to get it up. Okay.
All right, so basically the thing that we have here is if you scroll down a little bit here, you can see there's a list of sandbox projects. I would strongly advise to get rid of them because that list is also in the sandbox directory, and basically that list is also available as the list of files in the sandbox directory. So practically speaking, we have 3 places that list one and the same thing, and people obviously forget to update those 3 things at the same time.
One way that we could do that. So it is
Over
helpful
time,
to have
I'd
on the front
happily
page. It's helpful to
over
have
time,
somewhere near the top something which says here are the projects which have been formally accepted. Another way to do that would be less redundant would be to include it under the TSC voting members and which project they're representing. Because that is actually not just corporate affiliation, but also project affiliation is important because each project nominates one person to represent them. So I guess we could still get to our list of accepted projects on the front page of, when somebody lands on the TSC repo, if we were to move it down here and just eliminate that section up above.
I think that's an excellent idea. Actually, you could kind of move it, like get rid of chip slice projects per se, perhaps like move working groups to be not a subsection but a section, because like working groups as a subsection of chip science project doesn't really make that much sense. So we could nominate into a separate section, get rid of the chip science projects in its entirety, move the TSC voting members way higher. Like in the place where the chip size project is right now, and add into this table the project affiliation. That's a great idea. Yeah. That solves and we will not have a sandbox project list, but I don't think it's going to be so important. I mean, again, otherwise we'll have to maintain that list.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Could we perhaps interactively do that PR, or I mean, I could do it now, just not to forget what we decided. So basically, like here. Under the code of conduct, and then the chip size project handbook project disappears. Working groups gets turned into here, and actually we have projects and work groups below. So actually I would probably move the working groups further down. And also, oh yeah, and I'm Jesus. We need to accept the PR first that adds Henner, I think. And actually we can probably, into that PR we could add Henry.
You want me to merge that now, Michael?
Yeah.
I mean, for things like this is basically a documentation change. And typically, if I'm changing documentation, I'll just put in the actual PR itself. This is a trivial PR. I'll merge it directly. And that should be fine.
Okay, and I'd be totally in favor of this, except that we don't have any text saying that, like describing that procedure. Like this is an change. If you look at that's the question I had over email.
Oh yeah, sure. Doc fixes. There we go.
But that's for fast tracking, and fast tracking is still a fairly lengthy process anyway.
Yeah,
because
I
you have to
gotcha.
find someone to support you.
Well, so then let's do this. So how about, oops. Let me take that one, Michael. I'll put a new break documentation fixes out into their own special category and say for documentation fixes, just note that it's documentation fix and merge it directly. Because that is more process than would be needed for that.
Yeah, I mean, any kind of thing that allows us to change stuff that doesn't like, yeah, only documents the reality. It doesn't like change the state of things. Like, and I consider errata fixes and editorial changes this, right?
Yeah.
Meeting minutes could be that we have a procedure about adding meeting minutes. I don't see a problem with that, but well, updates to team lists is literally what we're trying to do here right now. And you originally answered that there is merit to having a procedure around this, and I don't disagree, right? Like, I feel that over time someone could be making changes they feel are insignificant, but actually are significant, except that
I think the key thing here is that if something gets merged that's trivial and somebody objects to it, then we just revert the change and then take it through the normal process. I mean,
yeah, I think that could be a good way to do that. But like, we need wording around this, otherwise it's like I've mostly been trying to follow that procedure. I don't think I have followed it every time when I was adding anything to the repository. I don't think that matters so much because my changes have been documentation changes. I haven't fundamentally kind of changed any reality with my changes, so to say. I haven't been changing the charter or anything. But over time, like, we need this process to be really robust, really well documented, because we'll just have more people. Asking the question, right? Just like, how do I make a change? Okay, so I'll leave it with you, Brian, to rephrase this so that we can proceed faster with those kind of changes. That would be great. That would really help. And then the TSC repo structure, I would exactly like start hacking around the repos, which would allow us to kind of just not have to repeat ourselves, because it's the same with inside the project directory. We have like sandbox directory, and then the directory itself contains a file per project plus the README. And I generally think it's enough. And obviously, over time, I think we could create some kind of automated fetcher that would parse that directory, take all those files, extract the formal project name, the license, I can imagine in my head a really cool automated system that generates a nice summary of those projects with links and everything, right? It's totally possible, but it is work, right? It's
all right, folks. Just so up on the screen, Michael, does that look like what you had in mind? I kept doc fixes up top because to your point, doc fixes could be documentation of various types of policy, and sometimes the language on that can be very trivial, and sometimes it can be very meaningful. Which I should probably actually remove that. That's should just call it trivial PRs.
Yeah,
that's a good
perfect. That will be super cool. Yeah.
The 2 TSC members who are on here. Actually, no, we have 4 TSC members now, so we don't have quorum. We accepted the process.
Sorry about
We
it.
just destroyed the
great.
quorum. Okay.
Let me fast track. Actually, you know what? This would technically be a documentation fix. And so it's something that should go through the fast track process anyhow.
Yeah. So
So
please propose that PR, and then Henry and I will accept it, and we'll be able to merge it.
Sounds good. Let me just fix, I need to fix the title on this for this section.
Yeah. No, that's a really helpful change, because that just allows us to proceed more quickly with stuff that we just notice, and you know, we don't need to ask someone for permission to just, you know, fix a typo or something.
Yeah, agreed.
And that really helps with keeping this repository tidy, which I think will be fundamental, because we can then tell people to go there, and that becomes our single source of truth that we can fall back on. And again, over time, I think we can build a really nice, you know, continuous integration process, which just takes the information in those directories and creates a list of projects in Chips Alliance. But doing it manually feels somewhat redundant, especially at this early stage where we just don't have enough manpower to be doing that editorial work.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it fits well with the idea of let's only do let's focus on the meaningful work and not on the trivial stuff that we can automate. So the more process we can remove and the more streamlined it can be, then the better we'll be able to focus on the stuff that matters. I just added the fast track. Oh, go ahead.
No, that was a new topic, so go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say I just added the fast track label. So if you want to go through and approve that, then we'll be in good shape.
I think you need to add us as reviewers for us to approve. I mean, you don't need to, but that's how I've been expressing approval earlier. Yeah.
Hello, sorry to for this disturbing. I'm Jae-young, and I just submitted the PR of Espresso, and come across to the TSC meeting, and wondering the process of this PR.
Welcome.
Yeah.
So this is the Espresso PR to add Espresso to the Sandbox projects?
Yes.
All right. Henry, Michael, you want to?
I mean, in terms of Sandbox, I don't think we should be opposed, but we can't vote on it anyway because we don't have quorum. For your information, Joy, we just admitted a project, and that kind of officially raises the number of people in the TSC to 4. And since there's only 2 of us, we can't take a vote. But in general, I don't think we should be against. Of course, in terms of admitting the project fully into graduation, that'll be a lengthier process, because basically there seems to be code that's not Apache licensed there, and that kind of triggers a due diligence procedure we have to go through, and we already have a list of other projects that we have to do it for. So graduation is kind of some way away. But in terms of sandbox, as long as we have reason to believe that the only current maintainership is in the hands of people that are anyway affiliated with and involved with the CHIPS Alliance, and it's a project that's needed by other CHIPS Alliance projects, then I don't think we should oppose putting it in the sandbox as an expression of the will to admit it once we resolve the licensing discussions.
Yeah. And just for some context as well, one of the things which we discussed earlier in the call was that the sandbox stage is really good for projects like this, where there may be some additional questions to get figured out. And this also puts it in our attention so that we're able to know that there's some interest here in becoming a CHIPS Alliance project, a formal CHIPS Alliance project. So I think we will we'll go through the process here and just figure out what questions still need to be answered. But it's certainly appropriate for it to be set at sandbox level. Okay. Do we have anything else to discuss for today? All right, we are just about at the end of our time here. I'd say we can probably.
I was muted. Oh, I was muted.
Oh.
Yeah, I wish we could, but we have this topic at the very end, transferring projects to CHIPS GitHub. So we'll still need to actually take those projects in, right? And I think the best way to do that would be to ensure that the core maintainers have signed the CLA and stuff like that. I'll need your help, Brian, to make sure that this happens. Especially Elaine, I think, is someone, because Henner is part of Google, and we're kind of talking to Hillary about this, and we'll resolve this. But with Elaine, he's not affiliated with Google in a way. He's working with us, right? But he doesn't have this backing of a large organization that understands the legal stuff. So it would be great to guide him through the process so that he could get the CLA signed and transfer the repository. I think he could also transfer the repository without signing the CLA, but then he would have a nasty surprise of not being able to commit code into his own repositories, which of course is something we totally want to avoid. Otherwise,
yes,
I think we'll not be able to prove that CHIPS Alliance is making things better for everyone, but rather that it's making things worse.
Yeah.
So just to mention that this really needs to also happen, like, even though of course it's just a technical thing, but it's still a to-do list. Okay,
yeah,
that's all, and we're on top of the hour, so perfect timing. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you, everybody.
See you next month, and talk to you over email in the meantime. Bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Cheers.